guys, it's Rena, and I wanted to start off by saying that I am filming on a different camera today, so things look a little bit different. That's why. I recently got my digital camera in the mail for my European trip that I'm taking at the end of this month, and so I'm going to test out, how it works, the quality, the lighting, the audio, and see if it's better than what I was using before. So just wanted to say that to begin with. But the main purpose of this video, and why you're probably watching, is because of the Beauty Killer palette. I've had this for a couple days now, and I've been able to do 2 different looks with it and really get a feel for the eyeshadows and how long they last on the lid. And I wanted to give you guys my comprehensive review of the product, what I think about it, is it worth it, is it unique, and let you guys know what I thought. So first of all, we'll do the boring stuff, which is the packaging. Just came in a bright pink box like this. It basically is like 5 shades darker than the actual palette. It matches the Skin Frost and the liquid lipsticks pretty well. On the front, it just has the Jeffree Star Cosmetics logo, the name of the palette, and just the net weight of the product. And on the back, it has this little tagline here: 10 jaw-dropping shades, vegan, cruelty-free, long-lasting, buttery and delicious. Experience the formula. The delicious part kind of throws me off because, I don't think you're really supposed to eat them, but it is, cute, and it has, a little, like, hatchet here because it's, like, Beauty Killer. It also has all of the shade names right here with all of their ingredients, and it has places you can find Jeffree Star on social media. So that's the box. The palette itself, I think it's kind of boring for Jeffree Star as far as the outside, but it does fit with the aesthetic of the entire brand, being the pink and the rose gold, and fairly, simple packaging. So it's cardboard packaging, and one thing that really irks me is that the back of the palette is completely empty, and considering the front is pretty minimalist, I really wish there was something on the back. For example, just to compare it to something that I have on hand, this is the back of the Edward Scissorhands palette by Sugar Pill, and it has, the colors, it has, vegan, cruelty-free, where you can find it and everything, and a lot of palettes I have the ingredients written on the back. I really wish the ingredients were on the back of this. Do I ever really look at the ingredients? No, I'm not allergic to pretty much anything, but it would be nice for those who were, because oftentimes we're just going to toss the box, so it would be nice if it was on the back. But what we really care about is the eyeshadows, and I've been testing them for a couple days now. I've done a couple different looks. I've used them wet and dry, so I have pretty good experience to provide. So let's just get into it. The first one I have is Star Power, and it is the bright pink. Probably what people are most excited about. This pink is gorgeous, it's a very eye-catching shade. I used this one yesterday, and I'm going to swatch them on the back of my hand for you guys. There it is. I already swatched them in the first impressions video, but I figured why not do it again. It's a very dry formula. It's considerably drier than the other mattes in the palette, and it's drier than pinks that I have in my own collection. So, for instance, it's comparable to Savage from the Urban Decay Electric palette, and it's also pretty comparable to Dolly Pop from Sugar Pill. And while those eyeshadows are not the most, smooth and creamy finishes of eyeshadows ever, they are considerably more creamy and nice feeling than Star Power is. So it's probably because of the pigments that they had to use for this particular color, but that's just something to keep in mind. It lasted pretty well on the lid. It did stain my eyelids pretty considerably. I expected, because Jeffree said that these were all eye safe in comparison to like the Electric palette, for example, that they wouldn't stain my lids, but Star Power did, even with a primer underneath. So that's just something to keep in mind if that bothers you. This one applied okay wet. A lot of mattes don't apply well when used with MAC Fix Plus or water, and this was one of them that really didn't do too well with water, and it also kind of ruined the eyeshadow just a little bit. Just something to keep in mind. That's totally my fault. I knew that this shadow would probably be finicky with water. The next one is Princess, which is one of my favorites. It's one of the satin finishes, and it's a beautiful frosty, or it's a frost finish, my bad. I totally knew that. It's a frosty lavender, And there it is. This applied beautifully wet and dry, and it is very creamy and nice to the touch, very soft. I didn't get any fallout with this shade, so I was really happy with this one. Next one is Violence, right here. And this one I do get a lot of fallout with. It's very powdery. However, it's very smooth and very pigmented, and it applies well to the lid and blends very nicely. This one lasted a long time. I really wish that it was more blue toned than red, because this on the hand and the lid translates more as a berry than a purple, and I think that's something that this palette is missing, is a true bright purple. The next one is honestly very disappointing for me. It's called Rich Bitch, and it has a very crumbly texture. My fingers are really messy right now from all the swatches I've been doing, but so just ignore that, please. It's disgusting. But there you go. It's all crumbly, and I just wanted to show you the texture. So on the hand, yeah, you can see that it doesn't come up entirely even. It's kind of patchy. And I tried applying it wet today to the lid, and it was even patchy then. The problem is that because it is so crumbly and it's pretty soft, the pigment doesn't actually stick to the brush well enough for it to apply to the lid. So that's kind of disappointing. The next one is Courtney. It's one of the mattes. It's very soft and creamy. I was hoping to use this as a transition shade, but it's fairly dark for me to use as a transition. I did try and use it yesterday as a transition, and I actually tried it this morning with Expensive. At first I put Expensive all over my lid, and I tried to use Courtney to blend out the crease, and it just does not want to, Courtney does not want to blend with certain shades. It worked really well yesterday when I used Star Power, but with Expensive it really was not working, and it didn't want to blend well. As an all over the lid shade, it was fantastic. I used it that way today. But with certain shades, it's going to take more manpower to really blend it out. Expensive is the one I just mentioned. There's a reason I'm not wearing it today, and I redid my look. This was the shade I was the most excited for in this palette, because when Jeffree swatched it, it had the most beautiful sparkle to it, and that was how I justified buying it. Because I have so many teals in my collection, I really didn't need another one. But I thought, you know, this has such beautiful shimmer. This is something I don't really have. But it's very fallout prone. You can see it's pretty crumbly, like Rich Bitches. And it really needed a base for it to really pop. So I had to use NYX Jumbo Pencil and Melt. And even then, the glitter and shimmer did not adhere to the lid. So I ended up taking it off because I was a little disappointed by the effect. And I went with trying to use Rich Bitch, Courtney, and Black Rainbow today. Next one is Confession. And this is a really beautiful red kind of cranberry shade. There it is. It's more pigmented than the swatch is really showing off. It worked beautifully on my lower lash line today. It went on smoothly and pigmented and didn't need much help at all. It has the same type of texture as Violence does, so it really blends well and feels really nice to the touch. I think the frosts are actually my favorite finish in the entire palette because they are so nice and easy to blend. Next is Vanity, which is the one that I thought was the most boring from the entire palette and was not looking forward to. But it actually surprised me. It's kind of an eggplanty color. See it right there? It's a matte. And it works well as an alternative to Black Rainbow if you want to smoke out a look, because sometimes, you know, black is just a little too harsh. This works really well with the pinks and the purples, and it would probably look really lovely with Confession. So the next one is China White right here. And this one, I loved the fact that, you might not be able to see it on my skin tone, I loved the fact that it wasn't just a stark white. I liked that it was more of a cream. It worked really well as a brow bone highlight, and it didn't look as harsh as I thought it was going to be. It works really well to blend out your crease, especially since some of these colors are kind of harder to blend, like Courtney. So it works really well to blend those two together in the crease. And last is Black Rainbow, which is right here. I used this yesterday and a little bit today. It's supposed to have this multicolor shimmer in it, but it doesn't really translate on the lid. There it is. All the shimmer falls out when I applied it yesterday, even with a sticky base. But it is a very pigmented black. It's very smooth and creamy, and I do like the texture of it. And it lasted all day. It was one of the ones that lasted the best. So overall, I think this palette is nice. There's some hits and misses. Expensive and Rich Bitch are not that great. Courtney can be a hit and miss, apparently, but according to how you use it. All of the frosts were lovely. A handful of the mattes were good. Some were kind of iffy. Most of the textures were okay, but Star Power and Rich Bitch were pretty terrible in terms of texture for me personally. Some work really well wet, some don't. It's just something you kind of have to find the right brush and the right technique to, master the palette. I will say it is a $45 palette, which is pretty reasonable for the size pans you're getting and the amount of pans. Do I think this is the best colorful palette to get? No. I have a lot of colorful palettes, and I'll admit that I got this mainly for the name, the fact that it was Jeffree Star putting out his first eyeshadows. I really wanted to try them, and I like them. I'm not upset that I bought the palette. I think that it was something I wanted to have in my collection, but I think the electric palette really fits the bill well, and I think if someone is looking for their first bright palette and they're looking for something to round out their collection, the electric palette is going to have those bright colors that will satisfy that desire better than this one will, because the textures are more consistent in the electric palette than they are in here. So overall, I like the palette, but there are some hits and misses, some like ups and downs. I'm going to be using it, more and more over the next couple weeks, but it's a good palette for a first palette from a brand. It's definitely got a lot of good colors, a good range. It's not all brights, it's not all neutrals. He really tried to kind of cater to everybody, I think, with this palette. But I don't think it's necessarily unique, and I don't think you have to go out and grab it right away. I think it's something that you should, watch more videos on, look at your collection, and decide if it's something that you're really missing. So it really didn't knock it out of the park for me, but it's not a bad palette. I think it's a decent palette. I would recommend Urban Decay or Sugar Pill over this palette though, but that's just me. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm sure I'll have some more looks with this palette in the future, and yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon.